last video, I started working on my exhaust system for my '74 Chevy Nova. And as I got to the rear portion of the exhaust system, everything behind the muffler, and I got towards the tailpipes, I noticed that the tailpipes are going to be really close to the shackles. So looking at the bushings for the suspension on the leaf springs, I decided that it's best to change them now before I finish up the exhaust system, because once the exhaust system is placed and fixed in its final position, it's not going to give me a lot of room to take out the suspension bushings as I do now that the exhaust system is not in place. So I decided to change out all the bushings for the leaf springs. And in this video, I take you along as I go through the process of accomplishing replacement of those bushings. So let's check out what I got to do. So I went out and got some new ones, some new bushings. So I went with the Energy suspension bushings, as you can see there. Pretty much it comes with these, two of these with a metal rod that goes in between it. And then that's for the front portion of the leaf spring eye. And for the rear portion with the shackles, it's with these. So, and of course there's enough to do both shackles. And in case you guys are wondering, what's the part number? There's the part number right there. 3.2103, and the letter R is for red, and if you don't have that little R, then it'll be the black one. So, but the most important is that 3.2103. So let's show you what it looks like. Man, I really like how that looks. It looks nice and new. So that's going to be sweet. And so I worked on the back, and the back was pretty cake. It's pretty easy. So you can see here's the shackle setup. Basically just took off these two 11/16" nuts, and then the bushings, you can see here, there's no sleeve, so they pretty much just slide straight out. They were in great shape. Just the outer edge was messed up. Inside looked brand new. So these were actually pretty good shape. So here are my new ones, and so you can compare to the new and the old. It's pretty much the same. So it's going to be really nice. You can see it even has the, you know, the curve over here. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take off this roughness and rust and give them a nice paint job, satin black, and then it'll be all ready to be put back together again. So here it is, installed. These shackles were super easy to do. And now I'll show you the other side. And you can see that I painted it with satin black, so it looks really nice. And it looks really nice against the red. And so that one's done. You can see how it looks. So now I'm going to try to show you how I took all this apart and how it was all done with the other side. Since now I have a plan on how to get this one out. You can see that's what it looks like originally. And the rubber is right here. Let's see if I can get a better view, more light for you. Okay, you can see there's the rubber there, and there's the sleeve that I need to get rid of. So after you remove this this mount from the frame, this is what you have to tackle. You can see this is the rubber bushing, and the sleeve is on the inside, and what we want is to get rid of everything in between this eye, the leaf spring eye. And so what I need to do is make a hole, drill a hole right through this all the way to the other side, because I need to first get rid of this here. Okay, so I got that part out. Now all I gotta do is pretty much cut the rest of that bushing out of there, and then I work on the sleeve. There. Okay, got the bushing out. Now what you're left with is that sleeve, and you can see the sleeve. Now that has to come out. So let's see if I can get it out with the air hammer. There it is. Okay, so you can see how I mangled the sleeve, but I got it out. So now that's what you're left with. And this is pretty much done. All you gotta do is just pretty much, you know, grease it up on the inside, insert your bushing, and put everything back together again. And then you're pretty much done. That's all there is to it. So for the rear, it's pretty self-explanatory. Just take off the two 11/16" bolts and then slide off the shackles and pull out the bushings. And that's it. You're pretty much done. Put in the new bushings and put in your shackles and put it back together again. Now, what I found is when putting the suspension back together again from doing, you know, the passenger side first, it's easier if you attach the bushing that's down there first, because this one, since it's a shackle setup, the suspension can move back and forth, and so the one in the front is stationary because it attaches to the frame of the car. So you want to be able to have this completely loose so that you can move the axle forward or backward as you install that other bushing setup. When you release the tension, because actually for me to get this bushing off, I have to lower the axle as far as it can go so that I can force this down, because the bolt hits against the gas tank. So I have to really push this down past the gas tank to get the bolt out. And when putting it back together, you have to do the same thing. Pretty much force it down as far as you can so you can get the bolt out. The one on the top is no big deal because the bolt goes in from the other side and you have plenty of clearance. So doing the other side is what I found to be the best way to put it all back together again. And then after you got the front all done, then you could just do that one and use the jack to help you align the screws to where they need to be. So I'm gonna paint up my my shackles and other parts just like I did for the passenger side, and then put it all back together. And one thing I noticed, now that the suspension is pretty much free floating, I noticed that the connection between the shock and the shock itself is quite a bit of ways. So I went online and did some research on that, because I feel that the shock should allow the suspension to travel its full distance. And I found that there's two different shocks for these cars. There's a shock setup for the monoleaf, and then there's one for the multi-leaf. Well, the monoleaf shock is about 20 inches full length when it's fully extended, and the multi-leaf shocks are actually 23 and 3/4 inch in length. And so I took some measurements from its mounting point all the way to here, and lo and behold, 23 and 3/4 of an inch. So the shocks that I have in here now are the wrong ones. So here are the shocks side by side. The white ones are the ones I took off of my Nova. The black ones are the new ones I purchased. Now, if you go to any parts house, when you go to buy your replacement shock, they're going to show you or lead you to buy the 20-inch. For whatever reason, they do not have a listing for the 24-inch. So whoever had the car before me, I'm assuming that these are replacements, well, they went and got the 20-inch because that's all that's available behind the parts counter when you say you have, well, in my case, the 74 Nova. Well, as you can see, my suspension free floating still had some travel, and this shock didn't provide that travel. So these shocks right here, the 24-inch ones, are the correct ones that should be on my suspension and will allow the suspension to have its full damper travel. Now, just so that you guys can get the information that I used, I'm going to let you read that. You can pause the video so you can have a chance to read everything. But basically it explains that Monroe recommends part number 5820 for the multi-leafs. And that's how I came to the conclusion that I needed the longer shocks. So there it is, fully done with the rear suspension. All the bushings are changed, shock absorbers are done, and now my suspension is complete for the rear. Now I can focus on getting my exhaust system fully complete. So, hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching.